Okay, so as I was saying about Miss Nakajima, right? So she's an everyday person. She's just a high school student at the beginning of the story. It doesn't matter if they're male or female. Typically, heroes are usually on the young side. Sometimes they're orphans. So when you think of like King Arthur or Harry Potter, a lot of these, or even like Spider-Man, Peter Parker, a lot of them don't live with their mom and dad. They live with a relative, an aunt or an uncle. Okay, so the monomyth, the ordinary world. So before our hero discovers a strange new world, we must first understand the status quo, the ordinary, mundane reality. This introduces the heroes to the reader, and more importantly, it lets readers identify with the hero as a normal person in a normal setting before the journey begins. So most heroes have humble beginnings. For example, in Harry Potter, he lives on 4 Privet Drive. That's his aunt there, and in that little panel is where his room is, I believe, where he sleeps. So he sleeps under the stairs. So sometimes the aunt and uncles could be very negative characters, sometimes they could be positive, or somewhere in between. Okay, so you're going to be having a project. So you're going to choose a film or something that you believe will demonstrate the hero's journey. You're going to create a slideshow with photos that show how the film follows the stages of the monomyth. So I'll make sure I create a template for you and an example. If you cannot get a film on your own, we may watch something in class or just come see me and talk to me about that. I'll have more to say about that tomorrow. All right, so some films that have the monomyth. Again, this is not an exhaustive list. So films like The Wizard of Oz, Star Wars, Spider-Man, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, Onward, the Frozen series, Lion King, Hunger Games, Mulan, all of these films are perhaps good places to kind of get your idea of how this thing works. Maybe a film that you think works is not on this list. Perfectly fine. You can clear it with me, and I'll let you use it. But this is just a way to get you, if you're having a hard time coming up with ideas, here are some options for you. Okay, so development. So when we think of the monomyth, a lot of it has to do with going from immaturity to maturity. But we kind of need to define what that means. So as a class, we'll try to define maturity and immaturity. But just for an example, let's look back here at Yoko Nakajima. So we're going to examine her in the beginning of the 12 Kingdoms, which is an anime series. So let's do a little brief overview of the beginning and then define some characteristics about her. Okay, so at the beginning of the story, we find out she's from Japan. She has a weird thing with her hair color, that it's got this odd reddish color that her parents keep making her dye. She's a honor student, and she's very much wanting to please her parents and maintain the reputation of a proper girl. She's only nice to Yuma, a quiet classmate, when no one else is around, most likely to maintain that proper girl reputation. Then one day, this guy Keiki, who you see here bowing to her, shows up and pledges this loyalty to Yoko's throne. Of course, that throws her off. She has no idea what he's talking about. And so she hesitates to accept this, but she's also afraid of her teacher scolding. So the teacher starts to get after her, and immediately she's always apologizing. Then she's given a sword by Keiki in order to defend herself from these monsters that appear. Of course, she tosses the sword away and cries. Then Keiki gives her the spirit that controls her movements so she can defend herself. So this is kind of where we see Yoku at the beginning of the tale. So how can we define Yoku? Well, as I mentioned, she's kind of cowardly, right? She cries, she throws the sword away. She's burdened